I'm Jack Berryman, ACSM historian, and we're here this morning talking with Connie Lebrun as part of our ACSM's Distinguished Leaders in Sports Medicine and Exercise Science series. So thank you, Connie. It's probably Lebrun, isn't it?
It is Lebrun.
I thought so. I'll make sure I get that correct.
No problem.
So thanks, Connie. And I just wanted to start out with where you grew up, where you went to college, majors, eventually you ended up in medical school, and
Sure.
if you could just sort of tell us a little bit about your early career.
I was actually born in Bermuda, and my father was in the U.S. Air Force Base, military reserve, so I was a child born abroad of American parents.
Yeah.
But we moved to Ottawa when I was went into kindergarten, so I lived in Ottawa, I grew up there. I went to school at University of Manitoba and then UBC, so my undergraduate degree is zoology and French literature.
Wow.
Which was kind of fun. And then I went to medical school in Montreal.
So you said UBC.
Yes.
What did you do there? A master's
well,
or
I
something?
moved.
Or what?
I did do a master's because I did my undergraduate 2 years at University of Manitoba, 2 years at UBC, and back to McGill for medical school.
Okay.
And then I went back out to Vancouver to intern. And I interned, and then I was a general practitioner for 5 years in North Vancouver.
All right, let's back up then now. So what were the dates that you were doing undergrad?
72 to 74.
Okay. And I love UBC. That's a great campus up there.
Yeah.
And
72 to 76, actually. 72 to 74 Manitoba. Then I moved out to Vancouver because I was selected for the Canadian National Women's Volleyball Team, and we had to move to Vancouver.
We need to talk a little bit about that too. So this is when you were, after you finished your undergrad degree, or during?
During.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you played volleyball as an undergrad?
Yes.
Okay. And you must have played when you were real small too? Or
no, actually I didn't start doing sports until about grade 9.
Wow.
Okay. I just didn't have the opportunity. We didn't have real phys ed in school.
Yeah.
So, I got into it. My parents weren't athletic. I was sort of the first one to get involved.
Wow.
Yeah.
So one of the things I ask a lot of people, and maybe it's true so you've always had an interest in sport?
Since about
Pretty
grade
much
9.
So, really.
Yeah, since about grade 9.
Yeah. So you were playing on the Canadian national team, you said?
Mm-hmm.
Now, was there any Olympiads in there?
I played from 74 to 77.
Okay.
And so there was the Montreal Olympics was in there.
Great. And how did Canada do?
Well, we came 8th out of 8,
Yeah.
but it's very competitive at that level.
Yeah, and that's the fact there's only 8 too.
And it could have, a couple times we lost 17-15.
Yeah, there's all those close
to Peru, and we'd beaten them the month before and that sort of stuff. But I mean, it was a tremendous experience. It was amazing being in the Olympics in your home country.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So what did you always have an eye towards medical school, or
I think
what?
so. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it got not sidetracked, but the training for the Olympics was pretty important.
Yeah, intense.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So I did my last year of undergraduate in 2 years because we were training and traveling a lot. So.
And then when did you go to McGill?
77 to 81.
Okay. And did you know what you wanted to do, or did you, through your, whatever you call them, rotations, clerkships, did you sort of find a niche, or?
I think I always liked respirology and I liked orthopedics, so those were sort of things I was thinking of. And I did a rotating internship, which we're allowed to do in Canada, and you can get a license after 1 year. And I ended up going into general practice because I wasn't 100% sure what I wanted to do. So after 5 years in general practice,
in North
Vancouver, I decided to go back and do the fellowship in sport medicine at UBC.
Okay.
And part of that was actually a master's degree in exercise physiology.
Oh wow!
So that's how I got interested in that.
Wow,
so
I
did
didn't know
that part time. Like I did the year fellowship 86, 87, and then I went back to my practice, did general practice, family medicine with obstetrics and all that, and sports medicine, and finished my master's. And then eventually it was too much, and I went just to sports medicine.
Yeah, well, that's neat. I had no idea there was that master's part in
Oh,
there.
and that's why I love coming to these meetings, because I love the exercise science as well.
Yeah, you really
And I always
understand
have.
what's going on, and that's very, very neat. I just didn't know that. So the sports medicine fellowship, I guess, or is that sort of like a residency then? Or
It's
what's
it was a clinical fellowship, but the one at UBC, we also had to do the master's degree with it.
which was part of the
Right.
deal.
It's
Okay.
not part of the deal in all fellowships.
No, it isn't.
But
That's
back in
true.
those days, we didn't have a sports medicine exam, so they wanted something at the end of it. I think UBC still wants people to do a master's degree, but it's hard to prepare for an exam and do a master. You can't do it in a year, so you have to commit more than 1 year. Most programs in Canada are just 1 year without the additional graduate degree.
Yeah, I
So,
see.
Yeah.
Okay, and then what was the next stop?
Well, I was in Vancouver for quite a long time. I practiced there, and then I had the opportunity to go to London, Ontario, and that was '95, and I was the director of primary care sport medicine and research there.
At University of Western Ontario?
University of Western Ontario.
I've been there. It's a
At the
nice
Fowler
campus.
Kennedy Sport Medicine Clinic.
Okay.
So I was there until 2007, I guess. Yeah.
So were you working mainly with the university athletes
No,
or
the
general?
the clinic serves everybody, and you know, maybe the elite athletes, maybe 10%, 5-10%. But we serve as the primary care physicians, the same as I do now at University of Alberta. We serve as the primary care physicians for the varsity teams.
Yeah.
And then we have people from all walks of life from the community coming in.
I think that's the way our setup is
Yeah,
now, actually,
yeah,
at
yeah.
Washington.
And now it's starting to expand a bit more because it's sport and exercise medicine. So, you know, some people still like to just see the MSK injuries, but I mean, certainly we see things like concussion. I see lots of people with concussion, but, you know, exercise-induced asthma. I mean, I have a particular interest in female athletes, and my master's degree was the effects of menstrual cycle and oral contraceptives on athletic performance.
Oh, wow.
So
You know,
this many years later, I'm still reviewing articles. I'm writing a book chapter right now. I'm just, you know, it's interesting to see that the field has not progressed as fast as some other fields. It's still fascinating. It's a hard area to research in. That's why.
Yeah, and there probably wasn't that much done
No.
before what you did, is
No,
my guess.
No. But my interest in that came from being an elite athlete.
Yeah, yourself,
Because, you know, I was telling somebody the other day, like, there was groups of us, and we'd feel stronger when we were on the pill. And it was much more androgenic progesterone in those days. So my thesis, I looked at aerobic capacity, anaerobic capacity, strength, and endurance. And then I did people in 2 different phases of the menstrual cycle, and then on or off the pill, and took blood tests and did all that sort of stuff.
Very neat.
Don McKenzie was my thesis supervisor, and he was very demanding. And I only looked at people with a VO2 max over 50, because it's probably only that group that it really makes a difference
It's
to.
going to affect.
Yeah. Yeah.
So is that when you got involved with ACSM?
Yes.
So it was more your master's work that
Well,
led you
probably.
then instead of your
It was a
medical
combination,
work, was
because,
it? Okay.
because the UBC people are quite active in ACSM. But yes, it was a lot of the masters. And then I was actually at the Ironman triathlon in Hawaii, and Barbara Drinkwater was speaking there.
Very neat.
And she came up to me on the dock, and she just sort of looked at me, and of course I knew who she was. And she goes, "I've just appointed you to the Healthy People 2000 committee, and when ACSM calls, you will serve." And I was like, "Yes, ma'am." So that was my first committee from Barbara.
I just saw her yesterday, and when she was at Washington, our offices were beside each other.
Oh yeah, she's tremendous.
So she's great. Yeah.
There was a time where she really took a group of us female sport medicine physicians under her wing and helped direct us in terms of what we were doing. So I was involved in the first big meeting in 1992 with the female athlete triad.
Oh,
and so I've
fantastic,
been involved in that all along. But
Yeah.
Barbara's just been a true, you know, source of inspiration and support for us
Yeah.
all along.
Was Rosemary part
Yeah,
of that early
yeah.
group too?
Yes, oh yes.
Wow.
I've known
Okay.
Rosemary since 1987.
Yeah.
So we were both at the Pan Am Games in Indianapolis on the medical teams. And
Very
so the
neat.
Canadian medical team invites the other teams to come over, and I was talking a bit about my master's work, and so that's when I got to know Rosemary.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
got to know her with the triad
Yeah.
stuff too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean that was so groundbreaking. I
Yeah.
mean, really, that
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
Super.
Yeah.
At the early 90s, right? Is that?
Yep,
Yeah.
correct. Early 90s. And, you know, nowadays I gave a little bit of a talk at a phys ed class about how my work, my clinical work interacts with the research, and I said, who knows what the female athlete triad is? And undergraduate kinesiology student, male, puts his hand up and knew exactly what it was.
Good.
So, yeah, so I was like, well, yeah.
Got somewhere with this.
But I remember that first meeting just thinking, man, there's a decade worth of work here, because we laid out a research agenda and everything. And so now, now we have a group with Aurelia Nativ and Mary Jane D'Souza, Nancy Williams leading it, and we're going to try and look at, well, we are in the process of doing a return to play consensus statement about the triad. So similar to the concussion ones, or we're sort of, we just had meetings earlier this meeting here, and we'll have a meeting in association with the IOC next early quarter of 2013.
Wow, that's another landmark.
So the idea is to come up with criteria for restricting people, and it's really a clinical tool. And you know, when you can let them return to play, the same kind of thing.
Yeah.
So we're looking at all the different issues and come up with some agreement and on that.
Yeah.
And some of it's research based, and some of it isn't. But the concussion ones were like that in the first go round as well.
You don't have it.
No,
I mean,
and it drives the research. Right?
Yeah.
Because you put a statement out there, and people try to prove it or disprove it, and then the next consensus statement, you take all that into account and change the overall recommendations. Yeah. So the concussion ones, they'll be having their 4th consensus conference this fall, and they've really set the standard worldwide for diagnosis and management of concussion.
Yeah, and you can do the same.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So in Edmonton, do you teach any classes, or is everything in the clinic, or what?
Yeah. Right now, I'm the director of the fellowship program, so we have a clinical fellowship, and I also
in sports medicine.
Sports medicine.
And how many can you take?
One to 2. Because we've been limited. We're in a very small clinic, and we're moving in August to a bigger space, 13,000 square foot space. So part of my job when I was there initially was to help develop the strategic plan and develop the building, you know, the clinic layout and stuff. But that's a lot of administration, so now I'm sort of more back to the things I like to do with
hands-on stuff.
Well, I mean, I coordinate all of the electives for sports medicine for the residents and the medical students. So we get residents in family medicine, emergency medicine, rheumatology, physical medicine.
Come through your clinic, your sports medicine.
Yeah, and
Very
medical
nice.
students.
Very
and
nice.
I have taught. I taught the first year I was there, and when I was at Western, I taught 2 graduate courses, taught coordinated. There was one on medical aspects of sport, and the other was orthopedic aspects of sport medicine.
Oh, wow.
So they alternated years.
Yeah. And how many, what's your medical school class size entry each year?
I think it's about 180 at University of Alberta.
Yeah, I think
we
ours is a
get
little
way
smaller.
more requests than we can ever
they're
accommodate.
all that way.
So, you know, pretty much all the time we have 2 learners in clinic, if not 3, and you know that they enjoy it, and you know, so my job is to coordinate things and keep things flowing with that.
So again, maybe I asked you this earlier, I got ahead of myself. At Alberta then, you not only work, I guess you do work with the varsity teams, but you're also a clinic that deals with the general public.
Yeah, we're a multidisciplinary clinic, and in Alberta you don't need a referral to see a physical therapist, but you do need one to see us. And so, and then we have orthopedic surgeons, we have massage therapists, we have orthotists, and
how about the athletic trainers? Do they come under you guys, or how
there's
do they
a separate,
fit in?
Yeah, the head athletic trainer is for the varsity is she coordinates those, so they don't really come under us. But as we speak, the transition committee to this new place is developing a governance structure, and so there will be a director of athletic therapy under that. We used to have an athletic therapy training program at the University of Alberta, part of it, but mostly it's in Calgary. So we have a school of physiotherapy in Edmonton, and they don't have one in Calgary. And then
I remember correctly, what, Calgary's 50 miles? How?
No, it's 3 hours drive.
3 hours? I thought it was real close.
No.
Wow. Because I've been up there a couple times, but I don't know how. I thought they were closer.
Yeah. No.
Yeah, that's a good drive. And of course, the trainers are an important part of the package too. So.
Right. Right.
And So your sports medicine fellowship, is there a lot of competition for those spots too?
Generally, I mean, we've talked about going to a match system like they have for the fellowships in the States, but there's something like 90 fellowships in the States, and we have maybe 10 across Canada.
Oh.
You know, there's maybe a few more. So.
Do Canadians have priority, or how does that work?
Yes, because the problem is the licensing. So,
oh, of course, yeah.
Yeah.
That would be the
and also
big
most of our
issue.
programs are a third-year residency program, a PGY3, in family medicine. So it's a category called enhanced skills, and so they get paid a third-year resident salary. Whereas when I went through, there was no funding for the fellowship. I got a university graduate fellowship for the master's, but the rest of it was sort of, you just did. So that's always been a problem, getting good fellows, because you can't pay them.
Right.
And so now most of the programs, again, have funding through family medicine. And then some of the specialties like pediatrics or physical medicine and rehab or emergency medicine, you can actually do a year of training in sport medicine in your 4 or 5 year fellowship program.
Oh, wow.
So right now we're pursuing in Canada a specialty certification through the Royal College, which is a specialist, and through the College of Family Practice. And so we're called an area of special interest focused practice. And then there's different categories of the enhanced skills program. So we're, you know, we've gone through accreditation, and so we just keep moving on up.
Yeah, that has changed. I mean, I haven't kept up with it like you. You're in it every day, but in just talking to Rosemary and people over the years, when there's only one fellowship at Cleveland Clinic or whatever. I mean, I had no idea that sports medicine had become that ingrained, I guess.
Yes.
I mean, it's really taken off then.
Yeah, for sure.
Wow.
Yeah. And in the States, there's a certificate of added qualification exam that they can take, that they write. And in fact, if you're advertising yourself as a sport medicine physician, you probably should have that. And then we've developed our own exam called the Diploma in Sport and Exercise Medicine. So it's a pretty standardized exam.
And talk about the growth of a field. I mean, you've seen it.
Yeah, and I was on the credentials committee to start with in our organization to develop the exam.
Yeah.
So,
do you see it as a real popular field for upcoming students? I mean, do they start out saying this is what I want to do, or do you think some of them sort of just change? And are these people coming from sports backgrounds?
most of them come from sport
That's
backgrounds.
what I wondered.
You get a pathological interest in sports medicine
Yeah.
because you've had most of the injuries.
You've had an ACL tear or something.
Something
and
like that, yeah.
I get students like that that I always wanted to find out.
It's hard to do full-time sport medicine because, especially in an academic setting, there's not that many positions available.
Right.
So many people combine it with family medicine or emergency medicine. So it's maybe part of their practice. And it's the same in the States, I think.
One of the things I've seen that's interesting as a historian is the growth of pediatric sports medicine.
Yes, we have a pediatric sport medicine physician on staff with us at University of Alberta.
Yeah.
And another friend of mine, she's pediatrics, rheumatology, and sports medicine. So it's pretty qualified.
Do you know Steve Anderson in Seattle?
I know of him, yes.
Yeah. That's how I got to know him.
Yeah.
I thought, wow, you just specialize in kids?
Yeah.
He goes, yeah, I'm busy.
Yes.
I'm real busy.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, just shows you the growth of kids sports.
But we see kids, we see people of all
Anyhow,
ages. So I would see kids too. They wouldn't all go to our pediatric sport medicine
just
doctor.
through family medicine or whatever you would normally see kids anyhow.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I told you it would go really fast. So we're out of time already.
Oh, dear.
So anyhow, I just thank you so
You're
much
welcome.
for. It sounds complicated, but it's neat that you've really been on the cutting edge with a lot of this stuff in your own personal career.
Yeah.
And now you're still doing it, and ACSM is still pretty much the main force, I
Sure, it is.
would think.
I mean, I love coming to ACSM. It's the mix of the science and the practice.
Yeah.
And you know, having been on the board and having been a vice president of ACSM too, it's an amazing group of people. Just to be able to continue to interact with them, and you know, I wouldn't miss it.
Yeah, that's sort of been the unanimous agreement
Absolutely.
thus far, but
Yeah.
Anyhow, so again, thanks so much.
You're very
I
welcome.
really appreciate it.